Hello, MetFi community. Well, today I'm so excited to invite all of you to join the first video AMA with a representative from BigTime. Of course, BigTime is one of the big projects that the MetFi DAO has invested in, one of those potential metaverse and Web3 unicorns. And as you know, we invested a total of 500,000 BUSD into space, which is kind of the real estate within the BigTime metaverse. And after that, we invested an additional 100,000 BUSD into a mystery box, which contained some utility NFTs that you need to add value to the space inside BigTime. So at the time when we made that investment, we were not able to know about what the details of that investment were because it was under wraps. It was still withheld information. Well, today you're going to learn more about that. And I want all of you to stick around through this whole interview because at first, of course, we're going to learn a little bit about BigTime as a gaming platform, as a gaming experience. But after that, we're going to go more into the economy. And that's where it gets really interesting for the MetFi DAO community, because that's where we learn about how benefit and assets will flow back into the treasury and bring value to the whole community. And remember that eventually you'll be able to swap some of your MetFi assets for project assets that are held by the DAO as well, by the treasury as well. So you want to know about what those potential assets are, what the potential value growth will be, and how this is all going to play out in the near future. So stick through the whole interview with us here today. And here we are with Matthew from BigTime. Hello, Matthew. Would you introduce yourself to the MetFi community?
Morning, I'm Matt. I'm the guild manager with BigTime. I do a lot of analytics and player engagement with the game.
So your surname is quite unusual. How do you say that?
Thwaits, yeah, it's a whole lot of consonants and vowels all mashed together. You just got to try and say it all at once. It's one syllable, so you just got to go for it.
It's not that complicated.
Yeah.
What's the sort of background of the name? Like, it's an unusual one. I haven't heard.
British.
Must be
most of my family's from the UK. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks so much for being with us. So a guild manager, so that involves like just sort of engaging gaming teams, gaming communities?
Yeah, it's the best way to describe it. I think when people think of guilds, their most traditional sense in gaming is like World of Warcraft, like for the Horde or the Alliance. But in BigTime, they have kind of more of a broad definition in my mind. It's really just groups of people who want to play together. Sometimes they have more of a competitive esports slant to them. Sometimes it's very social. Sometimes very almost investor focused. And we try and accommodate kind of each one of those separate interests with the way we engage them in BigTime.
So what's your passion with gaming? Like where did it all start on a personal level? Or is it more of a tech thing?
I mean, working for BigTime was the first time I had ever worked for a tech or a gaming company. I was actually in the Army before this, and so it was a bit of a career change. But like I think most people, gaming is something I had done since childhood. And like many of my kind of fondest memories with some of my closest friends were around a console. And so jumping into BigTime was an interesting experience for me, something new, something different. And it's something I certainly didn't expect to be around doing it for the 18 months I think I've been at BigTime. I initially started as an intern, and I've obviously stuck around for a lot longer, and it's been a great experience.
That's amazing. What a cool story.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'll just full disclosure, I'm not a really great gamer myself.
Yeah.
I have kids who are passionate about gaming, but for me myself, I didn't really have that opportunity when I was really young, and then other things took shape, other interests.
Yeah.
So I kind of have this this fringe understanding of it. So it's a very major industry, of course, from the standpoint of business and all that. It's very much present for all of us. You know, you get to see it, you hear about it, it's fascinating. But as far as really gaming myself, I haven't done that so much. So maybe I could represent some of the members of the MetFi DAO community who are also not gamers, like in my case. And I think that the main focus point of the DAO, as the DAO members know, and you know too from our other conversations, is that it's a community that wants to access new opportunity, new tech, things that are going to change the future. And it's been identified that Web3 and metaverse are really coming strong. And it so happens that BigTime is both Web3 and metaverse in many respects. And so I think that angle is very fascinating to the whole community about, okay, well, how does this work? How does it stand out? What's the difference? What's the experience with this game? What's the potential with the game? So if you would be able to just give us an overview, just a little bit of an explanation about BigTime itself, so what does it resemble? What kind of game is it? What's the gaming experience?
If you kind of have a arm's length relationship with gaming, the best way I could describe it using some big titles is 80% Diablo, 20% World of Warcraft. It's a RPG style game. It's not like a first person shooter. So if you've heard of things like Fortnite or Call of Duty, it's a very different style of gameplay than that. It's quite a bit more relaxed in my opinion. You are a character, you drop into this foreign world that's set in the future where time is collapsing and you complete adventures as part of that. Now, the first part of the game is solo individual gameplay, but then you can partner up with up to 6 people in a group and then go through these adventures and quests together.
So with the development of this game, obviously the developers are kind of a who's who in the gaming community.
Yeah.
They've been in Fortnite and all that, so they really know the industry well. And so what was kind of the reasoning behind the direction, the art direction, the story of the game? Is that a segment that needs something better, or how does that work?
I would say the BigTime largely started with the thesis that Web3 gaming needed a serious kind of quality improvement. The initial Web3 games that were popular, especially in 2020 and 2021, were relatively simplistic in terms of gameplay, generally mobile, generally some sort of turn-based game, like card games or something similar in gameplay to like Pokemon or something like that. BigTime wanted to go in a different direction. We wanted a high-quality PC gaming experience, but that incorporated Web3 components in a tasteful way that really enhanced the gaming experience, as opposed to it being kind of the center focus. BigTime does not exist just to extract a token or NFTs or something. It's more focused around the gameplay, where that Web3 blockchain component can add to it. And we think by doing that, it expands the number of people who would try and play the game and feasibly be interested in it, much more so than if it was just about the blockchain.
Yeah, and in the things that I was reading up on with BigTime, I think there's kind of an avoidance of the term play to earn, because that is part of the problem with the previous Web2 games, right?
Yeah.
So how do you approach that topic?
I would say if anybody asks, BigTime is not a play to earn game. It's a pretty strong narrative line, both in the way that we design the game, the way that the economy works, and just kind of the nature and spirit of the game too. It's just not what we want it to be. And part of it goes to the overall gamer population. There is definitely a large population of people who engaged in play to earn gaming, and it was like a feasible livelihood for them. But we saw these kind of other major AAA titles, and we're like, do people play them because they want this opportunity to earn from them? The answer, I think, is no. Right? Like, you can look at Diablo as a very recent example that kind of captures attention, made $700 million or so within the first 6 days. It's not because people are making money while they play the game. It's because they enjoy it. And that was kind of more of the experience that BigTime wanted to have, to create, and to foster, because we think that's kind of longer term more healthy for the game.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, because for me, I've been in entertainment as well, right? So I think with entertainment, the first priority is the experience, the art, and so if it's about just a commercialized thing, like, you don't listen to music to earn, because the gain, the benefit you gain is the beauty of the art, and you play games because you want that experience, that hyped up energy that you get in the game. So I think that priority is awesome. And what's been the feedback with BigTime so far?
It's been going well. Now, to put our kind of timeline in perspective, the game development started in around April of 2020. So a little bit over 3 years. The initial version of the game came out in April of 2022. And so since that time, we've had this closed alpha version of the game. The closed meaning that not everybody that wants to play can. You have to get some sort of gated access, whether or not that was very early on and you bought a pass, or now if you get invited into the game. And then it's an alpha version where it's it's not done. And so generally about every 8 weeks or so, we release a patch or an upgrade that adds more to the content, rebalances, and tries to generally improve the user experience. That's kind of the way that BigTime will grow. It's really just in a series of patches over time where you look back after a few years and you're like, wow, we've been adding stuff to this game for a long time. Look at this thing, it's a real behemoth now. As opposed to like a singular kind of like launch date, like, hey, boom, it's launched, it's done. And then any patches from there being small. Now we're going to keep growing over time.
Cool. Is there a roadmap as far as when there will be a full public launch or how that's looking, or is that a bit of a moving date?
I would say it's somewhat of a moving date. We don't have like a published date on the calendar where like, hey, this is the launch date and that's it. When I kind of look at where we're at in terms of our next major development timelines that we're aiming for, the next one for us is our .27 patch. So we're currently on .26, our Nox. The next one will really be focused on the economy. You see things like the token come out and crafting come out. And then we also alter the way that people get access into the game, as opposed to it being somewhat centralized around what I call ambassadors or like brand affiliates. It'll be expanded to everybody. Every player will have a finite number of keys. And then they can kind of give them out to their friends. If you're familiar with like the way that Gmail or Facebook used to onboard people in kind of the early 2000s, or Clubhouse in 2021, I believe, it's a similar way of kind of inviting your friends into the game. What that does is allow us to onboard people into the game without, overwhelming kind of the servers. And that allows us to kind of verify the economy, various aspects of the game before we kind of open up the floodgates and allow anybody to play.
Yeah, that's a good example. I'm old enough to remember when Gmail was this like exclusive thing that like, oh, you only got in by invitation, and like, who's got Gmail? I want Gmail. This kind of passion that was built up. So now everyone can just sign up for Gmail real easy and quick. But back then it was like, I went in. What's my entry point? So in this exclusive zone that you have right now, or this exclusive phase, what kind of numbers do you have? Like, how many people were able to get this gated access?
I guess in phase, we sold about, I'm going to have to do math here. I think it was probably about 16,000 early access passes. That's how many we sold. And those were gold, silver, and jade passes. I think the gold passes were selling at around 8,000 at one point. The silver passes around 3,000, and the jade passes around 1,000 or so. That kind of paid early access period also coincided with things like higher drop rates. So people bought those passes, they could get in, they had a higher drop rate, and then that kind of exclusive gated period ended around August of 2022, and then we transitioned to what we call now the Ruby Pass. The Ruby Pass isn't like an NFT that you can send to somebody. It's more like a key that allows you into the game, and you register for the game. If you know somebody who can give out Ruby Passes, they activate those accounts, and then they can start playing the game. And that's where we're at right now.
So Ruby Passes are free by invitation only kind of a thing?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so because the MetFi community got most all of the members, at least the members at the time, all got a Ruby Pass as part of this partnership. And so that would have been early on. That might have been before the invitation phase actually even kicked in, right? It seems.
I'm trying to remember exactly when it was that MetFi bought, but I remember this being like, okay, well, let's get all the usernames of anybody who, from the MetFi community, wants to try out the game, and then we ran their access. And so everybody from that list has the ability to play the game. If they don't, then of course just reach out. We'll get that resolved very quickly. But also, I think we made MetFi what I call these ambassadors. It's somewhat I think, kind of idiosyncratic program that we have at BigTime for both supporting content creators as well as what I would say are important members of the community that can invite people into the game this way. So MetFi actually has the ability to add in players if for some reason they can't get around to a BigTime team member, wherever it is.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for explaining that. And I think there's a lot to learn. Maybe we should go into the economy a little bit more, if it's okay.
Perfect.
Just like, so there's all these items and there's skins and there's weapons and there's, and most of them function as NFTs basically, right?
Correct. Yes. So the within BigTime, I would say there's broadly two categories of kind of tradable items. Now, they're cosmetics and they're utilities. Cosmetics are what they sound like. They're your helmets, they're your weapons, they're your swords. You have a fairly base looking character inside of BigTime, and when you want to upgrade their appearance, you can find these cosmetics from the game, from playing the game at high levels, but they drop very sparingly. Or you can just buy them on the marketplace. Now, the marketplace is all peer-to-peer transactions. We don't sell any cosmetics. It's people who found those cosmetics inside the game, and then those users decided, hey, maybe I don't want this one. I want to sell it to somebody else. Each one of those cosmetics is scarce. You can see it's like serialized. So, for example, one sword may be 1 out of 10. That chest piece may be 1 of 1,000. And very rarely you'll see some items that are a 1 of 1. So you can either buy a cosmetic there to upgrade your appearance, or you can hope to find one inside the game.
So you have to play to get these cosmetic items.
Correct.
They're not available for sale on the primary marketplace, right?
We don't sell them.
And then members can resell them, and they resell them on the secondary marketplace that's offered. So how does the transaction go down? It's a fiat transaction or a crypto transaction, or how does it work?
We have a hybrid marketplace, so people can deposit with cryptocurrency into their account. I think we have Bitcoin, ETH, and I think it's Polygon right now, possibly Tron, and then also a couple more. So you can deposit that way, or you can execute the purchase with a credit card too. So there's some flexibility there for people who are, fans of crypto and use it, as well as people who maybe don't use crypto but are more like traditional gamers, only have a credit card, and they can buy on that marketplace.
And I saw that actually it's not solely in the open loot marketplace. There are also these NFTs sold on OpenSea, right? And also Binance. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, we did some collections before the launch of the game on OpenSea and Binance. I think there are early access passes that we sold on both platforms, as well as some other NFT collections too, like postcards and stuff like that, which we sold on both of them.
Okay, so that's not the members selling. They don't remove it out of the ecosystem and sell it elsewhere. They sell it within the ecosystem. Is that right?
Correct. So those particular ones on OpenSea and Binance are ones where we sold them initially there and people retain them there, but they did not come initially from the game. That's correct.
So then you were going into the next sort of economy item, which is the utility aspect, you were saying?
Yeah, the utilities. So the foundation of it is space. Aesthetically, it looks like a room in a house or a castle. There's a variety of different themes or layouts. And inside of that space, it kind of expands your personal metaverse area. But to the edge of those rooms, you can attach things that we call forges, armories, and time wardens. Those things allow you to craft your own cosmetics. So like forges and armories allow you to make your own weapons or things that you could wear. And then the time wardens are a way for you to collect the token from in-game play. Mm-hmm.
So users can then create their own items that you're talking about, right? And then they can actually sell those as well.
Correct. So the current version of the economy is cosmetics drop as like a complete set inside the game, and then you can find them and then sell them. It's a relatively simple way of having the economy, but that's while we're in alpha. One of the things that transitions with the economy release of the game is you can actually craft your own. So the normal supply or drop rate of complete cosmetics will go down. However, the kind of raw components of making your own cosmetics will take its place. So for example, there are these shards that you can then piece together in a way that allows you to, for example, take them back to your forge or armory, cook them up, and you can make your own sword or your own chess piece.
Amazing. And those affect gameplay, right? They affect your ability to be more dominant in the game?
No, they don't give you like better stats. They don't give you like more strength or more endurance or anything like that. They're purely cosmetic. There are some other things we can do, like similar to like a battle pass type thing, where certain areas will be released early to people to have cosmetics or certain types of things like that. But we tried to make sure it wasn't a pay to win game. You can pay to get ahead, mostly because on the larger gaming population, that doesn't go over super popularly. So we didn't want you to just be able to buy your way ahead to great stats in the game.
That's a key point, yeah. So in other words, someone with a lot of money to just buy a bunch of skins and things, and cosmetic things, and then they become dominant in the game. It needs to be gaming excellence, right?
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
It's kind of well known. I think that like you don't necessarily want cosmetics tied to individual gameplay. For example, that's how Fortnite works. Fortnite is a free to play game. They have a gated access battle pass type thing, but the main way that they generate revenue is from cosmetics. Cosmetics don't give a player a competitive advantage, but it is a way for them to customize and to make them look good. So if you want to look like Spider-Man or something like that, or like a Samsung Galaxy phone themed character, those are that's how they generate it, and they sell it. And what we did was try and take that concept and add to it, where when you buy something in Fortnite and you have that cosmetic that decorates your avatar, it's somewhat bound to you forever. You can't sell it. You don't really have true ownership of it. So with blockchain and the way we approached it was, once you buy it, you do have control over it. You can sell it like as if it was kind of a real item.
So it's kind of like in-game collectibles then, with a limited supply and everything.
Exactly. It's actually one of the interesting things I certainly learned about gaming. You can design something and expect it to work one way and players will use it another way. When I think about cosmetics, I initially would have thought there's no reason to have multiple of the same one. Like, again, I had that somewhat simplistic Fortnite model in my mind where I was like, it doesn't matter how many of the Spider-Man costumes that you buy, there's not exactly a limited supply, so you can just keep buying them forever. Why would you have multiple? Well, users in BigTime, some of them are like, well, I want to be the only person who has this item. So anytime I see it on the marketplace, I go and buy it. And one player mentioned, he was like, I've got like 63 versions of the same sword because I want to be the only person who controls it. And I was like, oh, wow, it's very different. But he was also found out later he was into Magic the Gathering. He's like, I'm really into collectibles. That's something that's really important to me. And so collecting all of this one type of item I thought was something that would be really cool. So I like it.
Yeah, and that's really cool. That's what Web3 allows. Because, in the old days, there was baseball cards and other sport cards and everything, and there's this year and this player and this limited amount created, but it's maybe a little bit hard to avoid counterfeit items coming out onto the marketplace just due to the fact of the process of creating it, right? But with blockchain, you can really verify that it's actually the only one or a certain level of rarity or scarcity. So then going along with the economy aspect, so there is the token that will be coming out, right? The time token.
Correct.
And in gameplay, you can find tokens in the game, right?
Correct. So not everybody can collect the token, or at least they drop pretty sparingly. For multiple reasons that generally helps maintain the sustainability of the game is if you have space and you enable a time warden and then you buy shards into it with fiat, then as you play the game, you can collect the token. So there's somewhat kind of like a lot of steps are gated there, but what we really wanted to avoid was a very extractive economy where anybody could play, they could collect the token and then immediately sell it, because for a variety of use cases kind of recently, that would put a lot of negative sell pressure on the game. So what we did was try to create an economy where it's got more of a floor, a stronger floor, but larger upside, and that will really kind of grow with the number of players inside the game. Basically, if you have those items enabled, then as you play the game at high levels, then you can collect the token.
And what's the long-term plan for the token?
So it's a different approach to a token than I think other gaming projects. We're not doing an initial token offering or an initial sale. It's just going to come from in-game play. And so really as players play the game more and then collect the token, then that's really where the supply of the token will come from.
But then the token is a utility token, it's in-game, or it will go to the mainstream markets, or how will that work?
Yeah, so both. You can use it inside the game for crafting and that upgrading process, as well as, extracting it outside the game. If you're like, hey, I want to keep it in this wallet or use it on this DEX or whatever it is, you'll be able to do that too. But the real focus of it from just a pure gameplay standpoint is to use it to craft and make more stuff. Again, we try to orient its use around not just the Web3 audience, how they generally would use a token inside of a game, but what is appealing to somebody who, has played AAA games their entire life, maybe has kind of a not robust understanding of how blockchain works, and they're like, you know what, I like it, I like the game, I think I'm gonna jump into the deep end here. I'm going to try this blockchain stuff that BigTime is putting out. What's a tasteful way that they would get value out of it? So listing on mainstream exchanges is a long way down the road. I mean, it's eventually something that we want to do for sure. Unfortunately, I don't have the timeline of when that would happen. Really, I think the team is more focused on how do we launch the token and the economy and have that be successful and sustainable. That's kind of the number one. In terms of the longer term outreach and stuff like that, there are definitely plans for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can identify with this sort of mentality of trying to build something sustainable, build something strong that stands on its own, and then add layers of value as the history unfolds. As the phases happen. So the priority is to really create a good ecosystem, a good gaming experience, also interactive experience, right, in that whole gaming sphere. But then there is the long-term benefit of having actual ownership. So that's a real key differentiator. Then, like you were saying, with Fortnite, you have all these cool skins, but you don't really own them, right? They're technically owned by the game still.
True.
Whereas this, you have a genuine ownership of the items that you can collect, or that you trade, or that you buy in that ecosystem. And then, so I think that's a good segue into the whole MetFi and BigTime partnership.
Yes. Because
obviously the community is very passionate about the whole aspect of just regular people, everyday folks having an opportunity to access early stage ventures that usually, they're just for VCs, venture capitalists, or people with a lot of money. The general public doesn't really have access to those kind of projects, and this is the core thing with MetFi wanting to access, and I think BigTime really ticked all the boxes. It is in the sphere of Web3 and metaverse, and it is also early stage. So 2 investments, $500,000 equivalent at first for buying a bunch of space, a bunch of plots of space of various sizes that made up quite a large amount. And then after that, following the initial 500K, there was another 100K, which was a mystery box, right? So at the time, the community wasn't able to actually know so much about what everyone was buying because it was still under wraps. However, the community still voted unanimously to take it to another step, because I guess everyone feels pretty confident that this is a serious business. This isn't a fly-by-night quick passing thing. It's a serious thing. So maybe we can sort of fill in some space there with the whole mystery box and this 100K that was invested, which apparently is these in-game NFTs that are connected to your space, right?
Correct.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, mystery boxes. So the mystery boxes generally have this ratio of what the item inside of it could be. Generally, it's a 45% chance of it being a forge, 45% chance of it being an armory, and a 10% chance of it being a time warp. And then within that, there are different rarities that you can get. What that allows from our side is to kind of seed the economy with, hey, we want this many of rare types, this many of legendary types, this many of transcendent, so on and so forth, which helps control the kind of overall supply of the items inside the game. Those items allow people to make stuff inside the game. whether they make a cosmetic or they can collect the token. That's the only way to get it, is through those items. And so you can only use those if you attach it to your space. And then as you play the game at high levels, you can start to collect those kind of raw ingredients to make your own cosmetics, forge them together, or to collect the token from in-game play. And again, you have to get space and then a mystery box and then play the game in order to collect those items or to collect the token. Again, really goes to kind of our new way that we're approaching the economy, which is how do you protect it from large level extraction that puts a lot of sell pressure on it, and more so for people who want to earn and get something out of the game, what is the option for them in a way that's sustainable?
So yeah, it is those 3 NFTs, Time Warden, Forge, and Armory, that
Correct.
was in the mystery box that was purchased at the time. And those are important, essential items to build out the space that MetFi also owns. As far as the space, so how does that work in terms of building value, in terms of something that becomes quantifiable in terms of value? Like, can you rent out your space, or you can sell your space, I guess, or how does it work?
Yeah, so currently, if you just want to do something with your space, you can obviously use it inside the game. You can kind of decorate it right now and then invite your friends in there for a virtual hangout, like a personal metaverse area. You can sell it, of course, but then eventually it'll transition to the rental portion of the economy. So for example, like MetFi has like a lot of space and they have these packages. And so certainly one thing that we've talked about on our roadmap is you guys have so much in some of the rarest stuff that there are going to be some nascent players who would probably find it prohibitively expensive to buy most of the stuff at the rarities that you guys have, and so you could rent it to them. And so let's pick whatever that rental rate is. Like, hey, here is a space with a Forge and an Armory and a Time Warden attached to it. You can use this for 30 days at this rate. That's generally where we want it to go in terms of like the rental capability. And then somebody on the other end, let's say, hey, I go out there, on that marketplace, I rent that package from MetFi, I play the game, I can collect that stuff, the token and the items that I collect while using that package I rented from you. And at the end of that 30 days, it goes back to you.
So this rental functionality is very much in the roadmap, but not active yet. Is that right?
Correct. It would come out probably in the next patch after our economy release. From like a technical backside perspective, it's almost done. But really with our kind of development timeline, normally the developers finish it, the initial run, and then it goes to like game testing, goes through a lot of stress testing there, a lot of feedback. At some point shortly before the release, the entire company plays it, give our feedback. That's normally like a week of patches in there. And then normally we have this thing called the player council. It's like about a dozen or so very select players who are very engaged in BigTime. They play it, they give their feedback, make some minor changes, and then try and launch it shortly after that. That's normally where the model we've been using for our content releases in the past.
Okay, so yeah, it's a core element of the whole BigTime economy eventually then.
Exactly.
Which is kind of it's a way that you can actually, because you have that property in the game, you can actually have an ongoing stream of income if you have those items. And I think that this is quite key with the MetFi community, because as a DAO, it's not your typical economy scenario. It's a treasury that's collectively owned by the whole community, and then that treasury is their sort of is the whole community's representative in the investments that are happening. And so then when benefit comes back into the treasury, the plan will be that people's individual assets can be flipped or traded into those other project type of assets. I think this is a core thing that the whole MetFi community is quite interested in and eager to know about with the partnership with BigTime, because on the one hand, as much value as can go into the treasury, the better. But then of course there's that aspect of like, okay, well, in the meantime, can we benefit short term a little bit as well? So this is quite a key thing in terms of that extra value that will increase. Well, it'll actually potentially increase the value of the space when there's rarity and when there's demand, and there's more people who want to rent it than just by typical economic dynamics. It potentially should help that to be more of a tangible value there that's in that space. I guess it's premature still. You haven't really had that dynamic happening yet. Have you seen some price action on items or cosmetics and all that?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're looking for people who kind of are into like data and scraping and stuff like that, you can see the transaction history of every single item that's on our marketplace. We can see the from, the to, the amount, and the date that's on there. I mean, the economy has been going in its somewhat simplistic form right now of find it and sell it for about a year and 4 months or so. So, I mean, it's been very interesting to kind of watch it all. But when I think about like, what is the real kind of monetization of BigTime, it's mostly that 5% transaction fee. And so if you kind of think about what our incentives are, it's the game works really well from a financial perspective when there's a lot of people trading a lot of high-end stuff, which is good. It generally means you have to make like a high quality game that people enjoy. They value the cosmetics because they look good and they trade them a lot. That's really the way that BigTime works kind of financially in the long run. And so we've got a pretty strong incentives there to make a high quality game that a lot of people want to play. And so when you mention like the more that people want to come into the game, it'll drive up prices, and that's the way it can affect because they're scarce, and if you can kind of increase demand, then that's kind of traditional economics from there. Well, that's very much at play. Now, we intentionally don't let everybody play the game that wants to play the game right now. It's just not done yet. And so we know that from being involved in gaming a while, like if you just open up the game and they don't have a great experience, then they churn over time. And so what we do is we use this alpha period to learn more about how users respond to certain features of the game, to iterate, to bug test, all of that. That's really what we use the alpha for. And in turn, those other people get access to stuff that'll never drop again during these time periods. But we also learn how to make a better game.
That's cool. So speaking of drops, so drops happen when you're playing the game?
Correct.
How would the greater MetFi DAO community maybe be able to benefit tangibly from this asset that's held if they don't actually play? Is there a secondary way that they could benefit in that way?
Well, if you guys are renting out those packages to other people who do want to play it, then that would be probably the main way. So collectively as the DAO, let's say whoever it is like, you know what, we're going to take some portion of space and we're going to rent it out to players along with our mystery boxes, forges, armories, whatever it may be. We're going to put it out on the marketplace for rental, and it'll come back eventually to the treasury at the end of that rental period. But in the interim, people are paying to rent the stuff that MetFi puts on the market. So even if a player or a member of the MetFi DAO never plays the game and logs in, there's still that kind of transaction going on in the background.
Speaking of, since you're guild manager, I know that one of the core plans in terms of MetFi, yes, maybe everyone's not a gamer, but there are gamers in there with MetFi, and there is a definite plan in place of forming a guild, like a MetFi guild, which then adds to this interchanging dynamic between MetFi and BigTime. Possibly supporting other guilds, possibly joining guilds, possibly forming guilds. All of this is also sort of happening in tandem with BigTime as it develops out. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there where there's going to be a chance to interact and have mutual benefit between the BigTime community and ecosystem and the MetFi community.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. I think that BigTime kind of shines best when it's played with other people. The combat and the adventures are certainly good, but the real focus of it is around group gameplay. And so if there's a MetFi guild or pairings with other guilds, I think that'd be awesome. I would love to support that.
Awesome. That's really cool. And just sort of round out the point about, okay, so on the one hand, the first investment of MetFi was space, and then the secondary one was the in-game NFTs, Time Warden, Forge, and Armory. So basically, those three items were needed to kind of build out the space, right?
Correct.
To make the space more usable, more tangible, more valuable. So it was something that was an augmentation of the initial investment in space. In principle, if you have space with the NFTs in that space, then that makes the space more valuable as well, right?
Correct. Yeah, because like space has some functionality right now. Like it's your personal area. You can decorate it. You can store stuff in there from a game perspective. You can't carry everything that you want that you find inside the game. But when you have your own space area, you can augment that where you can store more stuff. You can customize it with some of the stuff that you find inside the game. But if you really want to partake fully inside the game's economy, to collect a token, to forge more stuff, then you do need to have those utilities to go with that space.
Which are those NFTs then, basically, right?
Correct. Yeah, and some, don't get me wrong, some people that just kind of play the game very casually inside of BigTime, they just want a small metaverse area. They find some stuff like cosmetics or like a bed or a desk or whatever it is, and they find it and they use it to upgrade the appearance of their game. That's for like kind of a casual gamer. I think MetFi has a different set of kind of motivations for being involved with BigTime for reasons that we kind of already discussed. And so from that perspective, you probably want to have more of that complete package of space plus all the utilities in order to really fully partake inside the BigTime economy. It's a very different focus. And so that's why I think why MetFi ultimately went for it is, hey, we want to have more of this return-based focus. How do we do that best inside of BigTime? It's with these complete packages.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I am very happy with our time, and I'm very appreciative of you, Matt, taking the time bright and early. At least it's summertime, so there's some sunshine coming probably.
Yeah,
if it was in the winter, it would be pitch black.
Yeah, it'd be total darkness. Yeah.
So Matt got up 5 a.m.-ish to join us. Yep. I really appreciate that. And I hope that we can engage again in the future. Do you have any final words for our MetFi community?
We love obviously working with MetFi on this one. If you guys have any questions about the game, feel free to reach out to me on Discord. I'm Matt the Guild Guy, to distinguish me from the 4 other Matts that work at BigTime in other capacities. Our Discord is kind of the number one discussive place of answering questions, but if anybody from MetFi has a question directly, feel free to direct it to your DAO, and then we'll get an answer as soon as we can.
Thank you so much, Matt, and thanks to all of you at BigTime. Look forward to this growing and taking a life of its own in many ways, and to the exciting developments up ahead. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Have a good one.